Hey, good morning again, options traders. Well, this is a good question that I just got an email from one of the traders about with this whole idea of a win loss ratio. And we've actually talked about this in different forms before. It's the same question, just repackaged. But you hear this a lot from traders, and they'll say, "Oh, I want to have a very high win loss ratio, that's my goal. I'm going to use it as some type of a risk money management system." And we're going to find out it's a really bad idea. So, why is that? Well, there's some very good reasons for not making that your goal. And let's go find out what they are. As always, before we do, please be sure to click like and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated and helps to promote the channel. So let's start off with the win-loss ratio. Remember what this is. This is just a number that traders pluck out of the air. It might be 60% winners or 80% winners. Obviously, the higher the ratio, the harder it is to achieve, but they have some type of a goal. I'm just going to use 60% to start off with. Well, if you have 60% winners, it also means that you therefore have 40% losers, and we would call this a 60% win ratio or a 60-40 ratio. And so this is how a lot of traders refer to this win-loss ratio. And all things being equal, traders desire a high ratio, and they think that that's better. But what I want to show you here is that this ratio is absolutely meaningless. And here's why. Let's just pick a number. Again, we'll use 60%. That's your goal. Well, what this means is that you have 6 ways to win and 4 ways to lose. Or for every 6 times you win, you have 4 times that you lose. And so mathematically, this means that you have 6 to 4 odds in your favor. And of course, we could reduce that to 3 to 2. And so what this means from a betting perspective, you would have to bet $3 to win 2. So again, yeah, of course, all things equal, it'd be great to win 60% of the time, but what if you had to pay for that? See, what if you have to pay $3 to win 2? So as I've also talked about before, price equalized the advantage. And once it's embedded in the price, well, now it's not really such a hot deal anymore. Not a bad deal, it's just a fair deal. And so here's an Excel spreadsheet of 500 times where you can pay 3 to make 2. You've got a 60% win ratio, but you can see that over time, you're just going sideways. There's no advantage in that. And not to mention that you're paying commissions every single time. So what will alter this sideways motion? Well, you could either have to pay more than 3 or less than 3. Or we could hold 3 constant and allow you to make more than 2 or make less than 2. And that's going to alter the graph. So for example, what if you paid 3 to make less? Let's say $1.50. So here's what's going to happen. Even though you're winning 60% of the time, look at that graph. You can see that in the long run, you're just heading south. Now, as is true with anything in statistics, in the short run, you can get some odd results because the sample size is too small. You can beat the odds in the short run, and that's what happened on this particular run of 500. And so you can see that if you're paying 3, but you're only making $1.50, even though you're winning 60% of the time, you're off in losing territory. Now, what if instead you had something that seemed to be a really bad ratio? Maybe you only win 30% of the time. All right, so you have 30% winners, 70% losers. So this would be a 30% win ratio, and that means, if that's true, that you're going to win only 30% of the time, that you must bet 3 to win 7. See, so again, the price has been equalized. The price is now lower. You only have to bet $3 to maybe win 7. And so that comes out in this ratio. That's the part that traders just completely miss. If you just focus on this, sure, it looks like a bad deal. But when you realize that you're paying 3 to make 7, it equalizes it. So again, here's 500 attempts at a game. This could be flipping coins. It could be something like a roulette wheel, some type of a game of chance. But you are going to pay $3 to make 7. And therefore, you're going to win 30% of the time. So you might think that this is going to send you off into losing territory. And look at that, it doesn't. It's just dead sideways. And again, that's because it's fairly valued. It's not a good deal, it's not a bad deal, it's fair to both the buyer and the seller. And that's why you're just going sideways over the long run. Now, of course, sure, certain pockets you might be on the low side, below zero, into negative territory. You might be in winning territory, go back into losing territory, but over time you're just going sideways. But you can also see where this sets up some psychological traps. You might start off in losing territory, and then you make some type of adjustment to your strategy, and then you end up on the winning side, and you say, oh, that was the missing secret right there. I made the right adjustment. Well, probably not. It was probably just chance at work. So again, how do we get off of this sideways motion? Well, we would either have to pay less than 3 and make 7. That would give us an upward bias. If we paid more than 3, it would go to the south side here. We'd end up on the losing side. We could also hold 3 constant and change the reward. If I paid 3 to make 8, that would put us on the winning side. If I paid 3 to make 6 or 650, we would end up on the losing side. It's the ratios that matter of how much you're paying and how much you're making, not how many times you're winning. And that's why you've got to get back to implied volatility. So that's why we talk about that so much in these videos. So let's try it. Let's say if you had to pay 3 but maybe could make 8, what's the graph going to look like now? And there we go, off into winning territory. As always, in the short run, we might actually end up with some losses, even though the odds are in our favor. But in the long run, over here at the far right side of the graph, you're absolutely going to be on the winning side if you have trades that are better than fair value. That's why we've got to focus on implied volatility. And even that, of course, is much easier said than done. But the whole thing to take from this is to get away from this idea of a win-loss ratio, especially as your goal. The win-loss ratio doesn't matter. What matters is fair value. So again, before you step into an options trade, we need to say, well, how much am I paying for this option versus what appears to be a good value? And remember, that's not measured in dollars. You can't say $2 and below is a good deal. We have to measure it against implied volatility. But instead, what do traders do? They focus on this artificial win-loss ratio. And focusing on the win-loss ratio only forces you to close positions too early. It's a guaranteed way to end up with losers. And for anyone who'd like to learn more about the art and science of options trading, please check out the Alpha Trader course, Strategy Lab, and a technical analysis course. It's all at optionsatoz.com. Also, please join us on Options A to Z's Facebook trading group, and you can find a link in the description below.